Okay, here we go. So we are in the middle of a series, and this is the third week of a 5-week series. So you're kind of coming in right in the middle of the movie here. We've done 3 weeks, and our series is called Why in the World? And so the first Sunday we did a sermon, and it was called Why in the World Do We Do What We Do? And we think as a church it's so important for us to constantly ask this question, why do we do what we do? Why do we gather? Why do we sing? Why do we preach? And we kind of dialogued about that and talked about it all on that day and kind of got to some things. Last week, you're glad you missed it. No, I'm just joking. Last week was why do we tithe? Why do we tithe? Now put up your hand if you've heard about this tithing thing in church. Okay. Put up your hand if you don't really know what tithing is all about. Okay, perfect. See, look at all these people that didn't. So you guys should have been here last week. However, so we like to, here's the thing, and I'll get to this again in just a second. There is a charge against churches that says that all churches ever do is talk about money. And I can guarantee you that that is not the case. In fact, I've been a pastor 17 years. Last year in February, I did a series called Dollars and Cents. It was the first time in 17 years that I preached on money. The very first time. I can tell you that pastors hate talking about money because it's so embarrassing. But I believe that those are the conversations as a church that we need to have. We need to bring clarity. We need to bring all kinds of clarity to those conversations. And so that is what we're intending to do. And that's what we did last week about tithing. Essentially, the reason we tithe is because of people. And as a church, you know what? If we just exist for our own members, if we just exist for ourselves, if we just bring money in or do whatever we want just so that we can serve ourselves, we're not doing what Jesus wanted us to do. Jesus wants us to act a lot like Boy Scouts and Girl Guides, right? And be help and all of those things in the world. And essentially, that's one of the reasons why we tithe, is so that we can help other people. We can have kind of a home base, and then we can do things in the community and beyond. And so that was last week. And so today, I'm so glad that you're all here, because this is going to be, it's another sermon on money. This is the way we break it down. There's 52 weeks out of the year, and essentially, it's not that we never speak about money. We speak about money very strategically. And so 3 weeks out of the year, 3 weeks out of 52, so not every week, 3 weeks out of 52, we talk about money. Why? Because it's important, right? It's very, very important that we know as Christians and as people what to do with money. So last week we talked about why in the world do we tithe. This week is why in the world do we need a plan for our money? Put up your hand if you got a plan for your money. Okay. The ones that didn't put up your hand, listen in. Okay, so number one, misnomer. Just give me a couple of disclaimers here. Number one, it's a misnomer that churches talk about money all the time. In fact, I know many pastors who just absolutely hate talking about the subject. The deal is that there's a lot of people who stand up here on stages like this who abuse the power they have, and they talk about money for their own gain, right? And that's the reason we think churches talk about money all the time. And I would be in agreement with you in that I think those people do abuse the power that they have, and they shouldn't do that. So I'm completely with you on that. However, don't let that close your ears to the wisdom of God, because God has some things to say to us that if we listen and follow, we're going to be wealthy beyond our wildest imaginations, because God is the one that created all of those plans. So the second thing is this, is that money is huge. Everybody needs money. Everybody needs money to go forward. You need money to, put clothes on your back, to eat. You need money, right? Put a roof over your head. You need money. And so we have a culture that is as prosperous as any culture that we've ever seen before. And so the problem is that we're more unhappy. The problem is we're more in debt. The problem is we're more anxious about where the money's going to come from and how we're going to pay the bills and all this kind of stuff. And there's more confusion about money as far as we go along. And so it's so important. It's huge. We need to talk about it. The next thing, and we talked about this last week as well, is did you know, and I got this written down here, Jesus talked about money a lot. A lot. In fact, Jesus talked more about money than he did about love and prayer combined. And I challenge you to look that up. I have a statistic here that Jesus talked about money in 16 of 38 parables. So not quite half, but almost half. And then he talked about money a whole bunch of other times. My thought is this. Again, Jesus understood what the vernacular of the culture was, that people were worried about their finances. They were worried about, how do we save for a rainy day? They were worried about all these things. And so Jesus constantly brought money into the picture. You know what I mean? If Jesus was the preacher at Highway Church, he would probably preach on money almost 26 times a year. I only preach 3, so I'm trying to become more like Christ, right? So maybe next year we'll go 4 and we'll just kind of keep chipping away. So Jesus talked about money in 16 of his 38 parables. And here's the last thing. For those of you who have mortgages and have jobs and have, weekly pay and have a car payment and all of those things, here's my question to you, okay? And this is kind of where the rubber hits the road. Because I want to ask you the question, when was the last time you invested time into learning about how to spend your money more wisely? When was the last time you put yourself in a position where you're like, I really need to figure this out? And so today, that's what we're going to do. That's really what we're going to do. And so those are kind of all the disclaimers. That's basically the setup. And let me start. Actually, I hesitate to do this, but I'm going to do it because I think it's just it's a brilliant illustration. And I think it might work with the kids as well, so we'll go there. How many people have a pet? You guys have a pet? Everybody has a pet? Oh my goodness, this is great. How many people have a dog? Dog? Okay. How many people have cats? How many people like cats? How many people like dogs? How many people don't like cats? Okay. Okay. 2 kinds of people in this world, right? The people who don't like cats and the people who... Okay. I'm way off topic. Okay. Our dog, actually, Maddie, she was with us for 10 years. She just passed away this past year. She was an amazing dog that misbehaved incredibly. You know what? If you said, Maddie, come, you know what she would do? You know what Maddie would do if you said, Maddie, come? She would run as fast as she could in the other direction, right? She would completely misbehave. I remember one day we were at this place, we used to live up in Barrie, and there was this big park called Molson Park. And it was this amazing place. It was winter. It was just like now. Well, not like February now, because February now is like Florida. But February then in Canada was like snow everywhere, and it was freezing cold, and we had been out on a hike with the whole family, and Maddie was out there. And so Maddie was a young puppy, and so the kids, and we're all freezing cold, and we're like, okay, let's get back to the van. Everybody gets in the van, and slam the door, turn the heat on, and we're just like all shivering. But no Maddie. Maddie didn't come with the family. Maddie was misbehaving. And so we would literally, oh, there she is. And so I'm the dad. I would get out of the van and Maddie, come. And she would just look and she would look at me like, what do you want? And then she would run the other direction. And I was like, oh my goodness, I want to strangle this dog. But I didn't, because she lived till 10. But I wanted to. I really wanted to. And so we finally actually decided on this day, if you remember correctly, we finally decided we're just leaving the dog. She was so misbehaved. She wouldn't come when she was called. She wouldn't do what she was told. We just thought, you know what? We're gone. You can fend for yourself. And so we decided we're just going to leave. Does that mean? To leave? This is mean. Yeah, that's me. Understand the frustration level here, right? However, as we were on our way out, there was another family coming in with their vehicle, and they had actually found Maddie, and they got a hold of her. And so they're kind of lugging Maddie around, and she's trying to pull away. And they're like, is this your dog? And we felt so guilty because we were literally on our way leaving, right? So, but we got a hold of the collar, and it was like, But I didn't hit her. I was nice. I was gentle. But we got her in the van. The idea is that Maddie had a free will. Right? Maddie had a free will. She could misbehave. If you called her, she could decide, I might come or I might not come. And most of the time it was I might not come. Here's the deal with money. And I got a bunch of Monopoly money. How many people like Monopoly? Did you guys get Monopoly money coming on the way in? Right? No, you didn't? Oh my gosh. Okay, that's okay. I wanted to give you Monopoly money, so if anything I said today resonated with you, you could use the Monopoly money. You could write something down on it that you might use as something for wisdom later on, and then you could write it down and put it in your wallet, and then every time you were going to make that impulse buy or whatever, you would not do it. Okay, so here's the thing. Money does not have a will. Everybody say that together. Money does not have a will. Okay, you want to say it again? Money does not have a will. That's right. Money does not have a will, okay? The idea is this. If I take this money, unlike my dog, if I take this money and I put the money right there and I say, stay, guess what will happen with the money? The money will, right? The money does what it's told. If I tell the money to go over here, the money will go over there, right? It's a miracle because the money has no will. Now, we've all heard as well this whole thing in the church where it's like, oh, well, money is the root of all evil, you know. You're not allowed to be Christian and be rich, right? Anybody heard that, right? It's wrong. It's wrong, right? The Bible says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. I've also heard it like this. This is not Bible. But the lack of money is the root of all kinds of evil. The deal is, it's not money's fault. It's not money's fault. That's what I was trying to get to last week, and I had a bit of a brain cramp last week when I was up here. But I was trying to get to this point. How many people know somebody who's super rich or just wealthier than you, right? How many people, I have friends, right? Some friends, and you're like, wow, this house, like, this is a nice house. And but those friends are super generous. You have those friends? They're wealthy. They got all kinds of money, and they love on people. They give money. How many people have rich friends, and they wouldn't give you a dime if you were dying in a ditch, right? Right? And how many people, this is my mom. My mom didn't have a penny to her name, but she would give you the shirt off her back, and she would do anything for you, and she didn't have a penny to her. How many people know people like that? They don't have any money, but they're the most generous people. And how many people know, people who are impoverished, but they're the most greedy people in the world? Right? Anybody? Right? It's not money's problem. It's not money's problem. Right? It's a people problem. It's a people problem. It's a what do we do with it? Money has no will. See, if money was a brick, and money is a lot like a brick. If money was a brick, you could do, because bricks don't have a will either, right? But you could take a brick and you could throw it through a window and smash a window, which would be vandalism, and you could go to jail for that, so don't do it. You could hit somebody in the back of the head with it. You could do all kinds of bad things with a brick. But you could also take a brick and build a hospital. You could take a brick and build an orphanage. It's not the brick's fault, right? It's the people's fault. You guys understand that? It's just like my dog. My dog has the independent will, and she'll do whatever I want. Money is not like that. And so, going further, here's the thing. I believe in our culture, we have a problem with money because we don't know as people what to do with money. John Maxwell, who is a communicator, a Christian communicator, leadership, you maybe read some of his books and stuff, he says this: if you don't tell money where to go, you will wonder where it went. Anybody heard that before? If you don't tell money where to go, you'll wonder where it went. Because why? Because money doesn't have a will. Money won't come when it's called, and it won't run away in disobedience. Money does what you tell it to do, and that's what John Maxwell says. If you don't tell your money where to go, you will wonder where it went. Let me just run some statistics. These are kind of like the ouch kind of statistics. Josiah, you got some statistics for me. These are stats that I pulled up, some from last week and some from actually last year. But check this out. 7 out of 10 people live paycheck to paycheck. 7 out of 10 people live paycheck to paycheck. Why? Because they don't know how to tell their money where to go, right? 33% of people have no savings whatsoever. And I believe that to be a conservative estimate. 33% of people have no savings whatsoever. 51, now we said this last week. This is a crazy statistic. Okay, 2006. Check out this statistic about how we don't know what to do with our money. Because this isn't even our money. This is Visa's money or MasterCard's money. $51 billion worth of fast food was charged to credit cards in 2006. Like, I think this is just, we got to put this on a t-shirt or something, right? Like, you know that fast food only lasts about 6 hours, right? Just saying, it only lasts about 6 hours. Like if you spend 50, well, I don't know, conservative estimate, right? Estimates may vary, but here's the thing. $51 billion, like if you were going to buy something worthwhile or buy something on Visa that was actually going to, the value was going to go up or something, but this is fast food. This is as low as it possibly gets. And these are American statistics, but $51 billion. Do you imagine what kind of world change we could create with $51 billion, right? It all stems from this idea that we don't know how to tell money where to go. The total amount of consumer debt in the U.S. is nearly $2.4 trillion. We complain about the government, right? Or the American government, Canadian government, how they spend that money. We got to get him out of power because he doesn't know how to spend money, right? Obama's ruining the country because he does not know how to spend money, right? But we are just as bad. We're just as bad. We are no better than all the people that we call on. $7,800 in debt per person, that's in the U.S. And again, that is a massively conservative statistic. I would say it'd be more like 15. And we had some stats last week to back that up. U.S. citizens are almost $1 trillion in credit card debt. So of that $2.4 trillion, about $1 trillion of it is on credit card debt. So you got all your other consumer debts, right? Cars and other credit cards like Sears and so forth. So those are just some stats that tell me that we don't know how to tell money where to go. And so today, I want to give a bit of an illustration, and I hope this helps. I hope this helps you guys. Because I think if we can get you guys on board at your age, man, then we could probably do a whole lot of change. So here's the deal. I'm going to tell you what I believe God says that we should do with our money. You may not agree with this. You may want to go home and check this out, and you can agree with it. You can disagree with it. I'm okay with that. You can get angry about it. I'm okay with that too. I'm just telling you, I'm kind of God's spokesperson today, okay? So don't shoot the messenger. Bring it up with God, all right? But I am going to tell you what God says about money through the Bible, okay? You can get offended if you want. That's fine. Storm out. All that. I'm totally okay with that. Just don't hit me in the face with a brick, all right? Here's what I'm going to say about with regard to the money. So I have $1,000 Monopoly. We couldn't afford that prop. So I have $1,000 in Monopoly money here. And so based on this $1,000, I'm going to break down how I believe God says that we should spend our money. Okay? You guys ready for this? This is yes. You're ready. Okay, here we go. So the number one thing, there's 5 jars here. They're all going to represent different areas in our lives where we should be spending our money. So number one is this. The number one thing, and this is the one that we got to get out of the way. This is the big elephant in the room. Number one thing, $1,000, 10%. And you guys are like, 10%? Wow, that's crazy. $1,000, 10%, God says, goes into the tithing jar. 10% goes into the tithing jar. First thing, okay? First thing. Let me give you a couple of verses. Number one is this. Understand something. James, we got the James passage here. This is from the book of James. James 1:17 says this, every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. So hold that there for a second. The idea is this. A lot of times, we believe that our money is our money, right? It's a bit of a misnomer. The way the Bible would describe this is that God gives us money. God gives us resources. God gives us gifts. God gives us talents. God gives us abilities. God gives us strength. God gives us even disabilities. And what we do with those, right? What we do with those is how we're stewarding that gift. So your gifts, your talents, your abilities, your disabilities, your disadvantages, all of those things are things that God has given to us to steward. Money is the same thing. It's not ours. That's what James is saying here. James is saying that every good and perfect gift is from above. So when you go to work and you're the rock star at work that you are, you know, and you walk in there and you kind of like, hey, well, I'm here. Okay, I'll fix this problem. Okay, I'll do this thing. Who gave you those abilities? From a Christian perspective, we believe God enabled you to be that good. God enabled you to have that energy. God enabled you to be able to, fix that problem or work on an engine or do whatever it is that you do. And that ability, that gift, that job, if you will, has been turned into money. Now you take that money and then you steward that money to the best of your ability. It's an idea of stewardship. The thing about money is, they talk about it all the time, there's no hearses with U-Hauls. You understand that? There's no hearses with U-Hauls. So as much as you think it's your money, it is your money until you pass away. And then guess what? It's not your money, right? And so everything kind of goes back to zero. So the second thing about this is with regard to this jar here, first jar, here's where Christians and church people, and you may not believe this if you're not a Christian or you're not a believer, and I'm okay with that. I'm just telling you what's in the Bible. Malachi 3:10 says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. A tithe in biblical terms was a tenth. So again, they didn't have money, monopoly, or any other kind of money. What they had was a whole bunch of grain, or a whole bunch of grapes, or a whole bunch of olive oil, or flour, or whatever they had. And so whatever they gained, they would take a tenth of that, and they would bring it into the storehouse of the Lord. That was how they stewarded the resources that God had given them. So this says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be enough room to store it. Okay, so again, the idea is this, is that God has mandated that we give a tenth to him and to his work. And the third verse that I want to bring up with this is Proverbs 3:9. So it says this, honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits. First fruits in the Bible was the tithe because it came off first, right? So you had 100 pounds of grapes, 10 pounds of the grapes would come off. That was the first fruits. That's why this is the first thing that we do. This is what the Bible teaches, right? You may not like it, but this is what the Bible teaches. So honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your produce, and then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine, okay? So that's number one. Everybody say number one? Tithing. Okay, that was hard to say, wasn't it? Okay, number two. All right, you ready? Number two. Savings. Number two, so $1,000, 10% in savings, okay, 10%. We also have some verses for this, and we'll go through these a little more quickly. Proverbs 6:6-8 says this, go to the ant, you sluggard, and we just finished this whole series on Proverbs, so this is kind of like all ears perk up. Oh, I know Proverbs. Okay, go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. Get this is a bug, right? This is what Solomon's saying. Okay, bugs can save. How come you can't save? You have no savings? What are you talking about? Like ants can save, right? Ants can save. And so it has no commander, no overseer, no ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest. And he's like, are you dumber than a bug, right? I didn't say it, okay? Don't shoot the messenger. This is the Bible, all right? Are you dumber than a bug? You have to save for a rainy day. You have to save for a rainy day. And so, Proverbs, let me just go to, and I love this verse. This is a lot more of a positive spin on this verse. Go to the next verse. Joe, you remember this verse. It says, in the house of the wise, put up your hand if you want to be wise. Put up your hand if you don't want to be a bug. Okay? In the house of the wise are stores of choice food and oil, but a foolish man devours all he has. So, and there's a reason that we have to save. There's a reason that we have to put away 10% of our income for savings. And the reason is this, is because emergencies crop up all the time, don't they? Right? Emergencies crop up all the time. And so the biggest thing about emergencies is how frequent they actually are. Right? And you're like, well, Pastor Rob, why don't you be positive for once in your life? Let's live positively and say that, oh, emergencies. I am positive that you're going to have emergencies. Right? You're going to crash the car. Right? Whatever issue is going to come up, the furnace is going to blow, right? The roof is going to come off the house. Something is going to, the uncle or the aunt or the niece or nephew is going to call and say, I need $1,000 or I need whatever, right? The emergency is going to happen. Emergencies always happen. And so this is emergency repellent. If you can save some money and have some money set away, when that emergency happens, you go, pull this out, and you go, hey, guess what? No emergency. Right? Our culture does not live like this. I'm telling you, this is what the Bible says. So my idea with this is put $1,000 away in an emergency fund that you do not touch, but you have. $1,000, and that's a beginning, but you put $1,000 away for that to start with. My wife and I started this a few years ago, and we started to put away money for Christmas and for summer holidays. Some of you may have already heard this story. But we'd get this summer and be like, hey, we got no money. We got nothing to do. How are we going to do a vacation with the kids? How are we going to take them camping? How are we going to take them to Florida? How are we going to do all this? Until we just started every week, we just started putting money away. And so from June, the end of June, or July 1st, all the way to December, we save money for our Christmas holiday. And when it starts January, then we save money all the way to June, end of June. It's like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And we have not a whole lot of money, but we have some money to do some stuff with. And it's so easy. We just do it. It comes out automatically out of our bank account. And all of a sudden, boom, when we need a summer vacation, we got one. When we need a winter vacation, the winter getaway, we got one. Why? It's because we started to save. Okay, so the third one is this. And I'm going to take out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is more for the adults than for the kids. But these are living expenses. So this is your mortgage. This is your groceries. This is your electric bill. This is all of those things, the necessities that you have to get through. Dave Ramsey, who's a great guru, and a lot of this material is coming from Dave Ramsey, he talks about the 4 walls of your house, and this is paying for the 4 walls of your house. That's food and groceries. That's utility, heat and hydro. That's transportation, because if you don't have transportation, you can't get to work and do the things you need to do. You need transportation, gas, insurance, and then there's also mortgage or rent. So 1 Timothy 5:8, just check this out. 1 Timothy 5:8 says this: anyone who does not provide for or take care of all of the groceries, the mortgage, the transportation, anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. The Apostle Paul is saying here to Timothy, he's saying, guess what, guys? We got to get this figured out. We got to get this figured out. You have to take care of your own. You have to be smart in this way. That is a first priority. That's a major, major priority. So those are the 4 walls. Then the next thing is this, and I'm going to break it down to $150. Now this is for if you have debt, credit card debt, or any other kind of debt, you have a school loan, or you have maybe a car payment, or any of those things, $150 goes into paying down debt. Okay, so you tithe, you save, you pay for all your necessities, then we start to work on some debt. And so here's a couple of scriptures with regard to debt. Proverbs 22:7 says, the borrower is slave to the lender. And guess what? When you're awake at night and you're trying to get some rest and you're doing the mental math and moving I'm moving money from this account over to that account and moving money from that account, and how am I going to pay for that? And that comes in on the 14th, and the next money comes in on the 17th, but I got that payment on the 16th. If you're playing that game, you are a slave to those people. And guess what? I don't know if you've seen the statistics about how much money these guys are making, but you're basically their slave. You're basically their slave. If you are paying interest to credit card companies, this is not a judgment. I'm just saying this, that you saw the stats, over $1 trillion worth of credit card debt. Kids, don't get credit cards. Don't get credit cards, okay? Why? Because the borrower is slave to the lender. Here's a little thing I came across. It said, our great-grandparents thought